Hey guys, it's Smudge here. Right, what we're going to be doing tonight is having a look at some mission building in DCS. I've been wanting to do some mission building for a little while. It's something I do some of. I'm not maybe the best at it, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to show a bit of the mission editor. Yeah, just kind of do some mission building, and maybe you guys can learn something from it. Perhaps, maybe. I often see people asking questions about how to put missions together and things like that. So I thought I'd, kind of put something together and see how it goes. I'm building this in 1.5, not the open version, not the beta. The reason I'm doing that is because the mission builder in the beta is pretty bought. It's a horrible thing to use at the moment. It's still there's a lot of kind of untextured things in there, and it just doesn't look very nice. But what I'll do is I'll build it in 1.5 open, and then I can move the mission across to 1.5 beta, and then just kind of open it, change a couple of things, save it there, and then it'll work in the beta version as well. So it's just easier kind of building it in 1.5. So to open a mission editor, pretty simple. Down the right hand side here you've got your options, and then you just click mission editor, and then bang, open. It opens the map, and it encompasses the whole kind of Caucasus region that you can see here, but what we're going to be doing today is focusing down on one particular area. Now, before you start building a mission, the first thing to kind of do is get in your head what you want to achieve, and kind of what you want to build. Have a kind of build a story or a a scenario in your head. Get kind of what you want to do set in your head, and then it kind of makes the building much easier, whether it's kind of like a air intercept over the mountains or something. But I did a mission last year, which I really enjoyed, and the guys that flew it with me really enjoyed. And it was a border conflict with Korean War aircraft, kind of over this sort of region here. And I just called it bridges, because the whole objective was to bomb some bridges and stop convoys kind of coming across this river, crossing the border from I guess what would be kind of Russian territories into Georgia. It's not a true-to-life scenario, but it is kind of an interesting part of the world. And with this region here, you've kind of got the mountains, which is a impasse, and then you've got the sea, which is an impasse. So this is kind of like a folder gap. It's something that would funnel troops down, so they'd have to come through here in order to kind of get ground troops into the Georgian region. So so our main mission building is going to be kind of focused around this area here. We'll be placing down in kind of random units. We'll look at triggers, making units move, and some other things like that as well. So the first thing to do before you start building any mission, and it is really, really important that you do this first. You just have to do it. Is first click new mission, and then you get this thing here, which is the coalitions. If you don't sort out the coalitions before you start building a mission, you can't go back and do it later on. And it's a real pain if you forget to do that and you start building a mission, and then you're like, ooh, I want to place down some insurgent units or some other type of units, but you haven't sorted that coalition out. You can't do it. It just literally becomes I think that there is like an INI file you can customize, but it is just the biggest pain in the bottom to do. So what I'm going to do here is just move across USAF aggressors, which adds kind of United States and NATO units into the red side, just in case we do need to do those for anything. Insurgents across, because I like using insurgent units. Russia's across on this side, which is just fine. The other units in here don't really kind of have a great deal of units to choose or select from. So we'll just kind of leave these as they are right now. The main ones that we've got in here are like the NATO countries, so you've got USA, UK, which is kind of what we're going to be using mainly for the blue side of things. You know, might not use everything in there. We've got Georgia and I think we've got Ukraine on there, which adds some red units that you can put on the blue side if you need to do that. But the most important thing before you start building a mission is just sorting out the coalitions and getting those right, because you can't go back and do that after you've started building the mission. Right, okay, so what we're going to do now is just kind of start placing units, really. Having a look at the map, seeing where we want the centre of interest to be for the fighting, and then build out from there, really. Now, I'm going to kind of design this around, so like the AV8, it's going to be an asymmetrical kind of PvE. So it'll just be guys flying AV8s out of Kutaisi, which is it's about 38 to 40 kilometers from the attack zone here, which also matches with Sukumi's distance as well. So they're about the same distance apart, so that's why I'd use these two. Sanaki's just a bit closer at 22, but with that, as soon as you're taking off and just kind of getting yourself ready over the target area, if you wanted to push it out a bit further, you could also use Cobuletti, which pushes out to 40. But I guess with the Harrier, I mean, the Harrier is pretty quick, but at least with Kutaisi, you know, you can kind of move out to the coast if you wanted to, and then set up like an IP and then fly in down this way, or, you know, you can fly in direct. So Kutaisi does give some good options. We might set some L-39s, maybe like a couple of MiG-21s or something as like a higher threat from Gudauta and Sukumi to come in later on, and we can set those on delayed starts and triggers, but we'll get into kind of how that works there. Right, so the main bridge, there's only actually one bridge. In fact, there's two bridges. I think there's a bridge up here somewhere. Yeah, there's a bridge here which kind of leads into nowhere, I think, if we go into sat view. Now in 1.5, this version, the sat view's pretty much useless. You get some ground textures, but for the most part it's all really low res and really nasty. You've got the altitude map, which shows contours, so all of these lines here are contours, and then you've got the flat map, just in case you want to kind of you know, have like a flatter thing to work on. But if you want to see where you're placing certain units, just to see how it looks, you can kind of go into sat mode. It's much nicer in 2.0 because it renders the entire map and all of the textures. So in 2.0, and when we get the updated Caucasus map, this will be much easier in placing units, because the map will it renders the actual in-game map rather than just like a really bad texture file, which we have here. So most of the time we're just going to be using Alt. These black spots here are all buildings and kind of ground texture parts. These orange things are roads. These black part here is bridges. There's a black line down here, as you can see, going across here. This is a railway, so this is a rail bridge that goes across here. These are power lines. You can actually turn all of these things off if you go into map options, so you can turn off things like buildings to make the buildings disappear, electric power transmissions, forests if you want to get rid of the forests. So you can customize the stuff that you see on the map by using the map options from up here. But we'll just kind of leave everything on there, and then we'll go ahead and kind of start building out. So this is the border, I guess, which goes along this river, so we're going to kind of start building out from here. Now down the left hand side here, you've got a lot of different buttons. The main ones that we're going to be focusing on is aircraft, helicopters, you've got ships, tanks, and structures. So structures, you can place helicopter FARPs if you want to place kind of forward air refueling points down for helicopters. If you click on categories, you can change this, and then we'll go into structures. And then the first thing I'm going to put down is a it's like a road. I forget what I call it. roadblock type thing, or checkpoint on road, I think it might be called. La 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 la. I'm trying to find it now. I'll know it when I see it. Where are you? It's called something on road. It's just like a road outpost. Here we go. So as you can see, there's a little kind of preview of it here, but it's like a concrete bunker with some gun posts in it. Kind of sits on the road, and you can place units around it. So it's kind of like a checkpoint. So as vehicles would come across the border, you know, they'd get stopped at this checkpoint or whatever, you know, check passports or whatever, I suppose. You know, but you can also settle as like a active point for bombing. So with these things, what we do is that we place these directly on the road. So we'll actually place it here. And so you place the icon directly on the road because the icon centers on like this part here. Using the middle mouse button, you can click and drag in order to get a like measuring line, but it also gives a distance and heading. So this heading is on runway 066. So if we go 66, then that lines up this. So now this bunker will be facing in kind of this direction on this road. So we just to kind of show what this looks like, we'll just quickly go into the game here. The funs of having SSD, it shouldn't take that long to load up. The first time that you load up when you're running the game, it's always slow, but every time that you go in afterwards, it's much faster. But this is kind of the joy with this mission builder at the moment is that right, okay, so right, okay, that's interesting. So the checkpoints actually kind of ended up in the ground because there's a it's on a slant, so it hasn't actually gone with it, so that looks a bit poo. So the reason I would check these, so I could actually move it a bit forward just in front of the actual checkpoint, kind of maybe place it just off the bridge, and then that might look better. So we'll come back out. Right, the mission editor, what we'll do is put it here with a heading of, oops, let's have a look. In fact, we'll put it on the corner here. So we'll go, let's try 110, see what 110 looks like. Now I'll place that here. Yeah, let's try that, and then we'll see what that looks like. So this is the, yeah, one thing I'd love to see or kind of figure out is a way to actually kind of edit stuff real time, you know, and be able to kind of view it in game while you're doing it. So it's pretty good. Maybe kind of need to move that back slightly. Yeah, so we're just kind of glitching it out there a bit. The fun and games of mission editing is it's all, you know, kind of be a bit trial and error. But it's just a lot of kind of placing units, seeing what they look like in game, placing units, seeing what they look like in game. But some things you can just kind of place down and know it'll be right. But with some things like this, you kind of need to figure out. So I'm actually kind of happy with that, where that is now. It looks okay. It's not kind of on the road. We could maybe turn it ever so slightly. But yeah, I mean, from the fact that you're going to be seeing this from about 5 to 10,000 feet, and you're not going to be looking at it a great deal. It's kind of functional, I suppose. Maybe kind of turn it left a couple of degrees. Yes. So we'll just line it up. In fact, let's have a look. Let's try 108, see what that looks like. So now we'll place some units in and around this just to kind of make it look like an actual armed up checkpoint. So we'll put some Russian units down. We'll call this CP1, so checkpoint 1, and then we'll place some units down around here and then have a look and see what it looks like. So what we'll do is maybe put a BMP2. I like BMP2s. Put this down at the side here. Now the first unit that you place, you always have to get it exactly where you want it to be. So if we then place down a second unit, you can move the second unit about wherever you want it to be, but if you move the first unit, it moves the whole group. The don't think there's any way to actually individually move the first one without moving the rest of the group. So the first one you have to get kind of where you want it to be, and then like the second, third, and fourth and things, you can all move these things individually about. So I'll make the second one a T-72. So we've got one APC and one tank kind of covering the road. And then we can also change this down to infantry. So these will remain tanks, these will be infantry, and then we can put down a selection of infantry and maybe like a RPG trooper down there as well. So we'll change that to an AKS, and then we can place these kind of just around the checkpoint. So place these here, then we'll go in and have a look at this and then see what it looks like on a map. Cool, so we've got a BMP kind of overlooking, got a couple of troops on the ground near it as well. We could actually move these in closer to the road to be next to the kind of checkpoint. Right, okay, for some reason they didn't seem to like that checkpoint. Don't know what's going on there. Did we put them in as blue? That's interesting. I've not seen that before. What did we do there? Ah yes, the checkpoint's blue, isn't it? That's why they blew that up. We need to make that red. Huzzah! There we go. So maybe move these guys up and then move these guys up here. Yep. Yeah, so that's why they blew it in. I hadn't even kind of clocked on to the fact that it come in as blue, so they will automatically engage that. Okay, so now we've got troops kind of around the checkpoint. The checkpoint looks good on the road there, happy with that, and then we've got a couple of kind of units. So that's maybe like target point 1, you know, it's like a couple of units there. And some troops down there as well. So, you know, when you're looking through the DMT or the targeting pod in the Harry, you'll see that, you know, and they'll kind of... BMPs are quite cool. They can use that automatic cannon to engage helicopters. They will have a bit of a go at aircraft that are passing, but they're not very good at it. And they've got a rocket launcher on top as well, which is quite good at killing helicopters. So if you're not paying attention and you're flying towards this in a Gazelle or a Ka-50 or something like that, there can be a real headache, BMP-2s. The troops are just down there, you know, for a bit of fodder. So happy with that. Right, now let's have a look. So we'll come back here, and then we'll put some units maybe in and around this town. So there's another kind of bridge unit thing here. So what we could do is maybe put down a... let's have a look. So an outpost. So this is the same as kind of like the road outpost. It just doesn't have the road elements. We can kind of place this down here. Now with these, I believe that they operate kind of 90 degrees to the direction that you want. So you've got 295. Oops, 295. And then we'll just kind of bring that 90 degrees about... let's say about 225. So that should line up the way that I want it there. And we'll call this... OP1. Then what we'll do is place some units in around this. So we'll put, let's have a look. Oops, so in fact, I'm doing it again and I'm putting these down as red, so I want that as red. Make this Russian. OP Group 1. Armour, and then what we'll do is put down a couple of T-72s here. So I'm putting these down as just statics at the moment, and then what I want to do on this one, just to make it a bit more interesting, is actually put down, let's have a look, Shilka. So I'll put this at the back here. Now one thing that you can't do, it won't let you put units in the water, ground units, so you kind of you get to the limits of where you can put it. So putting it here, I know it's not going to drown. So we'll come in and then have a look and see what that one looks like. Again, if you've got any questions that you want to ask about this, anything that you'd like to see, just feel free to ask in the chat. Right, so now that we're in, to look about units, it's F7, so we'll just spaff F7 a few times, and then we'll have a look and see what this looks like. So he's pointing the wrong way. We can turn him around. Shilker position kind of looks okay. In fact, yeah. So that's why we'll check these things just to make sure that they're all okay. So here's actually, let's put him right down here, and we'll move him. Actually put him, yeah, he's kind of okay there, wasn't he? Put about maybe looking that way. So that's like another little kind of checkpoint thing going on there. Now these concentric rings that you see here are for the Shilker, so you've got search range, kind of radar range and an engagement range, which is the inner circle on that thing, I think. So kind of as you're flying into this sort of area, you might start looking at you about here, so your RWR starts showing the Shilker, and then when you fly into this radius, you'll start shooting at you. So he's just a bit back from the kind of borderline as such, but you will kind of give off a bit of a threat when you're getting into that area there. So that's like another area thing to look out for. Right. Let's have a look at this. So we've got a rail yard thing here which we can build around. Would be nice to be able to see the textures there, but this here is the train track that comes through. We've got train tracks coming down here, and then a rail siding yard. So I might start building up something around here as an interesting target to bomb. Yeah. Hi Stefan, you said the blending of rural versus built up zone textures, really waiting for 2.5. Me too. Just a couple of weeks and then we'll have 2.5, and then you know, mission building hopefully become a touch easier, you know, because we'll actually be able to see kind of what's going on in the map, which would be really, really nice. So what I'm actually going to do here, maybe around this area, is build like a truck park. Like some trucks parked here with some armor and some troops, and then maybe a bit of AD, so an interesting kind of like build-up area, kind of going onto the rail track, something to blow up. Like I said, this is completely fictional. You know, you might look at this and think, yeah, that's a bit rubbish, but you know, it's just kind of things to bomb and stuff to do while actually kind of coming under threat. So we'll put down some trucks, 4-3. So if we go into this, no, we want unarmed. So we've got so these basic Russian kind of trucks that you can see here. So we'll place down some of these. Want this to be, let's see. So we'll go for 244. So now he'll be lined up looking this way, and then we'll place down about 8 of these, and then we'll just line these up. So we just kind of click on them. Like I said, the first guy always has to be in the right place. The consecutive guys can then be slightly different. Now you can place structured units down as well, but I like using kind of real units. They react kind of differently, but what I want to do with these ones, next to the routing options, which you got here for placing where units move, like placing waypoints for units, you've got advanced waypoint options, and then in here you can tell units to perform specific tasks or do things kind of on their route. So what I want to do on this is set option, ROE, hold fire. They're trucks, they don't have any weapons, but I like to add that on anyway, and then I want to put dispersal under fire off, and then we'll put alarm state is green. So what this does is that this unit, if they did have weapons, they wouldn't engage with weapons. When they come under attack, when a unit comes under attack in DCS, they'll naturally take avoiding action, so the unit will move kind of off the road or off the map, and they'll scatter out, so it makes them harder to kind of bomb a group. But what I want these to do is kind of be like empty dumb trucks. So if you come in and hit one of these or a couple of these on a guns pass, the rest of them won't scatter and will stay in a line. So that's how you do that. So you can put weapon hold, dispersal and fire off at alarm state green. So that means that they won't react to any sort of enemy fire. They won't return fire if they had weapons, but these are just static structs that I want there. So what I might also do is place a couple of AA units down here. So I'm going to put a low threat AAA, so I'm going to put down a, helps me go into air defense, and I want a ZSU on the back of a truck, which is this guy. So you've got a ZSU Mark II kind of on the back of a truck, not very accurate at all. You can also change the skill here to make them better, but on average it's just mostly there for firework display, just some tracer coming up. So when you're kind of flying overhead, you know, you get a few tracers and coming up, and if you're stupid, if you're flying low and slow and kind of flying over it, you will get tagged by it, but most of the time it's just kind of a good visual display of, hey, there's something down there shooting at you. So that's an interesting thing to kind of put down, and then we'll place this here. And what I might do, just to be an arse, is place two of these down, kind of pointing in different directions. So if we go into the mission, now one thing you can do, you can hit F7 to kind of look about all of your units, but you can also go into F10, find a unit that you want to find. So we'll go this one and then hit F7, and then it goes straight to that unit. So if you want to find a particular unit quickly and see what it looks like and where it's parked, then that's the way to do it. So here we've got like the AAA gun next to the railway line, which we've got there. We've got the line of trucks parked just off the road, and then we've got another kind of truck over there. So this is kind of like a bit of a truck park with some kind of idle targets in there to shoot at. You know, kind of like a yeah, maybe like a rail loading yard or something like that. But what I'm going to do is flesh this out just a little bit more. Have we got any other gaps? So I'm going to do place on this side as maybe some idle APCs. Oops, I want Russia, and I will call this group. In fact, we'll call this what I'm doing now is just naming all of the units, so I know kind of which one's which, and that comes in later when I'm sorting out triggers and activations and things like this. So if I wanted to have these switched off until you fly over such a point and then they pop up and activate, it's a good way of keeping the unit count down. If you've got a lot of units scattered around an area, it slows the mission down, hits frames and things like this, but you can then put these onto late activation by clicking this. That takes them out of the game initially, and then you can use triggers to bring them in under certain circumstances. But for these, I want these to be in from the start, because they're one of the initial attack points. So I'll place down a few BMPs here as well. I want armoured. In fact, what I might do actually is put down some artillery guns. Let's have a look. Yeah, these look good. Camera down there, cool. And then we'll put these 1, 2, 5. Infantry. And what I might do is on the crossroad here, got something down a bit more nasty here. Let's have a look. It's got Strela, which is a really nasty infrared launcher. These things kind of come out of nowhere and smack you in the ass. We've got Shilka's OSAs. Now these things are a bit more deadly. They're radar guided kind of missiles that come off these things. Interesting kind of winter, summer, spring default. So that's the default kind of green, but I'm actually going to make this a winter kind of scenario. So we'll put the winter camo on this, make it look a bit more Christmassy. But with the AV-8, of course, you've got the sidearm, which is the anti-radiation missile, and this would be a pretty good target for it. Now the OSA's got a lot of reach and it can be quite deadly as well, but on the first wave, if they're going in with air defense and things like that on, then this should really kind of not take them by too much surprise. But we might put this on the crossroad, kind of here, looking that way. There we go. So that's got quite an extended kind of detection range, so they should get that on the RWR as they're coming kind of feet wet over the border zone. If they've got a sidearm up, it should lock onto that. And then it can take that out so it doesn't become a threat too soon. I don't want to overload this with very dangerous kind of AA and SAMs and stuff like this. Just enough so that you've got like one or two sidearms off and then that's it kind of neutralized. So it's not too difficult. But again, if you're not paying attention to the RWR as you're flying into the mission area, then yeah, you're going to get hurt quite badly. So we'll just come into this and then we'll hit F7. So that's him kind of on a road. In fact, I might reverse him so he's kind of pointing the other way there, because his radar's pointing away, which isn't good. But I believe that all pivots. It's on like a pivoting mount, so when it alerts, in fact, what we'll do, let's test this. So I'm going to put in, let's have a look at blue unit. So we'll put in a Vigan, we'll call this test 1. We'll put him in at 5,000 feet, oops, no, 5,000, speed at 500, and then we'll tell him just to fly straight over that. And then what we'll also do is add reaction to threat. No reaction. So what this guy does when they're shooting at him, he's not actually going to react to it at all. Yeah, what we'll actually do is put on a couple of ECM jamming pods on there as well, maybe. Let's have a look. Can't see what I want on there. We'll just call this jammer. Which one's got the pods? Let's have a pods. Of course, that's a jammer and a dispenser there, so he may spaff them off. I told him not to do anything, but we'll see what happens there. So if we hit fly on this, so now we can see what the OSA reacts to a high-flying incoming aircraft. So I've got our Mirage flying his route towards the target. So I'll come and look at the OSA and then hit F7. Then we'll see if when he picks up that Vigan and starts looking at him, and if he turns his weapons to target. Sped up time a little bit here just to get him over. Ah, there we go. So now he's alerted. So if we actually pause this, no, pause. So where's the Vigan at? Okay, so the Vigan's just literally crossed over the border point, and he's brought his weapon systems alive. So if we go back to him and then resume, we'll see what range he engages at. So right now we're on the AV8, the RWR will be going spastic, and then you'll be able to get your sidearm up and know that there's a threat, lock onto it, and then hopefully kind of shoot it down. So this guy's activated, he's armed up his lovely radar guided missiles there. He's got his search radar and tracking radar active, so hopefully soon he'll gain a lock, track and fire. There we go. So we'll pause that. So he's just got a missile off there, and then we'll go into the F10 view. Okay, so there you go. We'll bring up the measuring tool here in game. So he is about 1.5 nautical miles away. Yeah, so kind of in the AV8 you'll be inside that engagement range before the OSA fires. But then if we watch, in fact we'll go on to F6 and resume this. So the first missile went spastic there. Has he fired a second? Okay, so he's fired off a couple of spastic missiles there. Oh, and another one. Oh, yeah, and our guy is jinking a dive, and he's probably got his ECM on there as well. So our Viggen managed to defeat all of the threats there with his jamming pods and stuff like that. So, yeah, cool Viggen. Right, okay, so happy with that. That's I'd class that as a medium threat kind of environment. So you've got some targets here to destroy, some artillery on the ground, some trucks. There's some AAA and a OSA just kind of on the road there. So when he detects that, he arms up his weapons just as you're coming over the border, and then he starts firing at you, and the plane starts jinking and stuff like that. So cool, awesome little scenario kind of going on there. Alrighty, so let's have a look and see what we want to add in next. Right, what I want to do actually is add in a convoy, kind of moving across the border region, so something to actually stop from getting there. So let's have a look. We'll place down a moving convoy, place it here. We can see how long it's going to take to get there, and then we'll put this on. So one. So what we'll do is that we'll put this on road, so now it'll stick to the road, so even if we try dragging it off, it'll always return to road. If you've got this off-road, then you can drag it kind of wherever you like, and then you can also set kind of route formations and things like this, so the units will kind of organize themselves into a formation as they're crossing open ground and stuff like this. But at the moment we're going to put this as an on-road convoy. We'll place a waypoint down, so we're going to tell him that he wants to drive to, let's have a look, here. So the travel time on this, because at the moment the mission start time is 12 o'clock, and we can actually see this when we come here. So the start time is 12 o'clock, so the total travel time on this convoy to waypoint 1 is 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is actually a pretty good mission time. So, you know, an hour, 2 hours per mission's a good kind of, you know, good planning time. You know, you can have a good time in that hour. So what we could say is that you've got an hour to stop this convoy from getting to its objective at Zugdidi, and then we can also place a kind of like failed mission trigger down here. So once the convoy enters this zone, if you haven't managed to stop it, or if we put it like kind of crossing the border zone perhaps, then you can get like a message warning up saying that enemy forces have entered this area, and you know you failed to complete one of the objectives, sort of thing. We can actually also adjust their speed here, so we can make it faster and slower. So if we time to go 10, then it's you know, 1 hour 23, 11's 1 hour 15, 12 1 hour 10. Yeah, so there we go. That's close. So we'll put them in a 14 knots is ground speed. So it's actually going pretty quick there, for a bunch of tanks and stuff like that. What we'll do is that we'll flesh this convoy now. So what we'll want to do is put in, let's say, 2 lead tanks. Then we'll put in a BMP2 because I like them, they're a pretty good threat. Then we'll maybe put in a Shilka. Then maybe, let's have a look, we'll put in some APCs, so we'll go back into armor. BTR-ATs, let's have a look, yeah, so we'll put in a couple of these. And then what we'll do then is put in some trucks. So we'll put in some armored trucks, because they can take a bit more of a beating than the standard ones. So we'll have 4 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so 4, and then we'll go back to a... In fact, what I might do is change this middle one here to a command truck. Mobile command. 2 trucks. MP2, and then we'll end it out with another couple of T-72s taking up the rear. So there we go. So we've got a couple of heavy tanks at the front, then we've got an APC, Shilka, another APC, 2 trucks, a command vehicle, 2 trucks, APC, and then a couple of tanks bringing up the rear. I suppose that we could put another Shilka in there, but you know, I think 1 Shilka is enough in a moving kind of convoy stuff like this. So you know, we'll say it's like a troop protected troop convoy. Quite a lot of kind of stuff going on there. So let's just go in. So we'll put that as there. That'll take the route. Happy with that. So with this convoy, in the Harrier, I suppose, you know, if you've got Mark 20s, that would do a pretty good job of killing most of it. So we'll click on him and then hit F7. Okay, so one of our trucks has decided he actually wants to kind of go off on his own, or is that? No, that's actually a civvy truck. Yeah, so at the moment we've got civilian traffic kind of driving through them. In 2.0 it's actually quite strange because the civ traffic, or the main units on the road, move out of the way for the civ traffic. They don't actually end up driving through each other. What we'll actually do is go to this. In mission options here, you can actually kind of force enable everything in the map. So you can set the options that you want for the map. So we'll turn force civ traffic off. We'll have tooltips on. External views we'll have on. External views. We can turn off things like external views if you want full realism, permit crash recovery, so if someone dies or crashes then they're done, sort of thing. But we'll just kind of leave that on there at the moment. What we might actually do is just save it at this point as well. So we'll go save as, we'll call this Border War, because, you know, it's easy to remember. And then we'll hit fly. So we come in and have a look at these guys, so hit F7. Okay, so civ traffic's off, but we still got civ traffic. Fun and engaging. So just checking what sort of impact this convoy is having on FPS here as well. So looking at that convoy, it's not too bad actually. Only when you're getting close it starts hitting the frames, but the LOD on some of these tanks is actually really quite high. So here we go, we've got kind of a moving convoy with a command truck. This is like an ATC guidance truck, but they also make good kind of placeholders for a command truck or like a mobile command. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That's an interesting thing to try and blow up as well, and they are moving pretty slow, could move faster. You know, they're traveling a lot slower than a lot of the civilian vehicles around, but I guess, you know, military convoys generally kind of travel slow and deliberate. If you wanted to make it harder to hit from the air, you could make them move faster. Because then, of course, you've got to kind of lead them with your bomb drops and your missile runs and stuff like that. So, what do you think? Thinking if I might make them move just a touch faster. Might move them up to 15 and then readjust. So, road speed will go 15. In fact, let's try a little higher. 18. And then what we'll do is then move them back a touch. So that's 51 minutes at 18 knots. So if we actually start them back in town here. Yeah, that's close to an hour now. So we're a bit further back there, but that's you know, pretty close to an hour starting from this town. So that's at 18 knots ground speed. So we'll just see how fast they're travelling in game there. So what they're doing there? In fact, they're keeping their speed to... they're accelerating now, so that's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 16, 17, 15. Okay, so they're actually topping out at about 15 there. So we check them in F7. So yeah, they've got a little bit more pace on them. They're still not kind of going as fast as some of the civvy traffic about them, but... yeah, they're still kind of en route, but that's an interesting thing to hit. What you can also do with these, if you want them to keep going towards their objective, is go in and add dispersal and defire and switch that off. So when you're flying towards them, they will engage, but when you drop a bomb on them, normally they'd scatter off the road and go all off to the sides of the road, and then they'd just kind of like stop in place until they feel safe, and then they'd get back under route. But with dispersal and defire off, if you attack one, the convoy will just keep going. They won't stop. So we'll leave those just like that. So that's something else to hit. Right. Now what I want to do is maybe add some more kind of stuff down here. Let's have a look. So there's no other kind of crossings further downriver. If we look on the SAT at all of this stuff, there's no kind of route crossings or bridges or stuff down here, and there's the rail bridge here, so we could maybe kind of build something in and around here, around the bridge and rail crossings maybe. Maybe just like another kind of AAA point, something like this. I'd like to build maybe like a command bunker objective, like forward command area. That could be an interesting place to put maybe around here. Like road moving into it, so we could kind of build like an objective here to hit, with a bit of AD and stuff around it as well. So let's do that. So what we might do is put some outposts. We'll call this 2. Something to hit with bombs. What do I want? Command center. So yeah, you've got these funky kind of ground command centers with aerials and things sticking out of them. So we might see what these look down here. Just the direction, that's 05. You can copy and paste things as well, so if you hit Control C and then Control V and then Control V, you can place down multiples of the same thing. So we'll place these down and then kind of see what they look like. And then what I might actually do is place down a warehouse. These things are quite cool, the ammunition warehouse things, because when you drop bombs on those, they go off in pretty big style and start launching rockets and things into the sky. They're really quite cool when you blow them up. Now what we'll do is maybe place some kind of units in and around here. So we'll go air defense, ZSU enclosed. And then just to be a mother trucker with this one, what I might do is put down a supplies. So we'll do iglacom, manpad. So let's go in and have a look and see what this looks like, and then we'll adjust things. So this is like a command area, like forward command area that needs bombing all to hell. So we'll go here and then hit F7. Oops. So I've actually kind of placed the Igla guy inside a building. Right, okay, so that needs adjusting. So in fact, they look a bit shite. What I might do is organise those to north slightly. Command bunker, yeah, kind of, they've slightly clipped into each other there, but looks like one big ammo dump rather than two separate ones. And then a command kind of bunker just outside. Might separate those slightly and then reorganize those to be facing other way slightly. So I've got some kind of in place AAA. In fact, we go. So these are in place kind of AAA units, kind of scattered around the outside. So there's 4 of those, and then we'll move that manpad thing so he's not kind of actually inside the building. So that would be interesting. So let's actually have a look at this. Let's organise these to 5. We'll rotate them slightly. See if they look better there then. Yeah, Stefan's actually just read my mind. I was going to go into artillery a little bit later on and setting artillery attack points and things like that. Yeah, might do that next actually. F7 on these. Okay, so these guys are now in a good point. So a nice little surprise there. A bit of infrared manpad. So if you're coming in to attack the target and you're not really paying attention, then you'll get a surprise up your bum. But some points to bomb there. Still need to separate those a little bit out, I think. Might pull the top one north a bit, or those two south. Oops, nope. So we'll pull this down just a little bit further, this one down just a little bit further. What I might do is close these up just a little touch as well. So what this could be is like a like forward command point with barracks or something. So have these as outpost barrack type things, stuff like this. Oops. Yes, they're a bit more. Needs to line up just a little bit better. And we've ended up putting the guys back inside the building again because yay. Alright, and okay, so they're now actually separated really quite nice. Happy with that. They're all in good positions. We just need to line these up just a touch better. Like I said, it's a lot of kind of trial and error in this, just getting everything's kind of in the right sort of places. Let's see how that looks. Again, mission building is not the most exciting thing in the world, but you know, once you kind of do it and you have like in your mind what you want to build, then you can start building some pretty cool kind of things. I've done some pretty cool mission in 2.0 using some pretty advanced triggers. Yeah, they look making much better. I'm kind of happy with that. I think they're fine where they are with those guys there. We've got the AAAs on the outside. Might actually move that top AAA out just a touch, and then I'll be happy with this. So we'll move. Ah, damn it! That's Unit 1, isn't it? So that moves everything. I hate the fact that you can't move out Unit 1. So I'll just double check that, make sure that they all look okay. So one thing I'm really thankful for is having an SSD, because loading in and out of the game, yeah, that's actually better, I think. Kind of the commander inside the bunker, he's just outside, that's cool. They line up fine, that AAA's fine, that AAA's fine, that AAA's fine, and that AAA's fine. Cool, happy with that. Alright, so that's kind of like an objective thing to bomb as well. Right, happy with that. Okay, now let's actually have a look at artillery, because that is something I was going to look into. I'm just trying to think of the best place to put it. I was thinking about up north. Kind of like on the edge of the tree line here. Okay. So let's have a look at artillery. So what I might do is place some artillery units just back of the road here. So you got armor, in fact, artillery. And then we'll go, helps we go Russian as well, doesn't it? Now you've got things like these MLRS, and they're really funky, but MLRS absolutely wreck frames when they fire. They fire with such intensity that when they're firing it brings servers to their knees. They do literally nuke the server. Same with these grads. But I'll tell you one thing though, they do actually look bloody fantastic when they're firing. But we might go for the MSTA, which is kind of like long-range heavy artillery, and I think this actually has a winter skin on it as well, doesn't it? Yeah. So I might put down. So let's have a look. So 4 of these. Like this. Then we might put some protection in around these guys. So here we've got 4 artillery guns, mobile artillery guns, and then we'll put down some. Fact, I'll put them on a second group. So with artillery, what you need to do is that you can place it down. This ring here is the artillery's effective kind of firing range. So we could tell it to like attack this point in Zugdidi, and then maybe have like a friendly kind of point around here or something like this. So we'll have it bombing the town. But what I might actually do is put this on a timed starting activation, so like a delayed start. So they're not there initially, but then we could have like a scenario where they pop up and then you get like a snap instruction, or we can set it to randomly pop up under certain circumstances. So what we'll do with this is we'll place them. That's all fine. Happy with that. We'll go add. Perform task, fire at point, and then you get a fire at point mark. Oops, I've just clicked off them. There they are. Right, so here you go. So now you've got a fire at point, so we'll drag the fire at point over here, and then you can set the radius, the zone radius of what they fire into. So if we set this to 1000, so that's 1000 feet, so that kind of covers that area. So let's try 5000. Right, okay, so now that's going to kind of blanket area this fire with fire. Blah 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 blah. So 3281. That's the maximum kind of radius that I can shoot out to. Let's try 3000. Okie dokie, so that's perform task, fire at point. And then what they do is that they'll load up the gun. So initially it takes them about 3 minutes or so before they'll start firing, and then they'll start firing. So we'll also set these guys to option dispersal and firing, and we'll take that off as well so that they won't move when you start bombing at them. So what I'll do is just show these guys firing. If you put supply trucks next to artillery, then they will kind of try and rearm and fire again. But it's something I've still got to kind of try and figure out myself. Is these, because sometimes I get them to fire and then they'll just stop firing. Okay, so these guys are actually on the side of a hill here, so I could actually move those down to the other side of the road, then they'll be on flat ground. We would just accelerate time here. Like I said, I think it takes about 3 minutes for them to kind of plot and start firing, so that's 1 minute. It's a weird kind of texture loading problem there. Right, okay, yeah, so that's 2 minutes, that's 3 minutes almost exactly for them to start firing. And it's pretty much the same with all artillery. They do take about 3 minutes, and then they start firing from when they pop in. Then we go to Control F11, then kind of come across the map and go to Zodidi, which is down over here, isn't it? Yep. So that let's have a look. Ah, yeah. So this is where we're told them to target. So the rounds will start splashing in around here. Ah, yeah. Oh, right. Okay. So there's an impact at the back. So we're told them to hit in like a 3,000 feet kind of radius, so the rounds aren't going to be tightly accurate. You can tell them to target down to like a 500 feet, and then they'll all kind of land all of their rounds on a certain area, but that can be a bit overly devastating. So if you have like a command area built in here or something blue, then yeah, you know, you can yeah, sorry, just having a drink there. Yeah, you can have them attacking an area without absolutely devastating the target. So at the moment they're just kind of like zone firing and splashing rounds all over the area here. So that's quite cool. So what we'll do then is move these guys actually in front of the road, because that was flatter. So we'll move them to about here. Now what we'll do is put these on late activation but visible before start. And then we'll tell them to start at, say, 12:30. I think that should be right. Let's have a look. So that's why is that blank, or is it 12? Just trying to think of the time format. It's not liking that time format. Give me 2 seconds here. 12:54:57 round speed. Right, okay. Hum. Why is that giving me red? In fact, let's try this with a trigger. So we'll do triggers. So we'll go trigger, and then we'll go activate unit. In fact, no. What we need is time more than. So time more, not time more. Can we actually? Hum. So with triggers, we could tell them to activate once there's units in a specific zone, or you can tell them to start firing after a certain time. Let's see. So that's in seconds. So let's try. I just want to try something here. So we go. Oh, crikey! Just got me calculator. So let's say 5 minutes. 300. Then we'll go activate group. I'll call RT1. Okay, so now this should be time more than 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. It should activate this delayed start group. But they should also be visible before the game starts. You could take them out. So by that reckoning, they'll be there. They'll be visible before start, but they shouldn't start firing till, let's see, 5, 6, 8. That would be 8 minutes before they start firing. So we can actually test that now. So let's just make sure I've got this right. Oops. Interesting. So they're not actually there. I guess. Alright, okay. So with that, I guess that they're not actually going to physically pop in till then. Let's just see if they're actually on the ground. So we had them over. Was it over here? Let's have a look. Oops. Button. Oops. Sorry about this, guys. Just trying to figure out what's going on here. So it was off this road that they're on. Yeah, yeah, it was this road, wasn't it, that they'll pop in onto? I do believe, anyway. Because that'll be... Twisting the road. Sorry about this, guys. I'm just trying to figure out where I am on the map. So we've got a kind of strange twist in the road, don't we? And then, right. Okay. So that's here. Yeah, that is the right place. Okay. So if we watch this area, then accelerate time. After 5 minutes, that unit should pop in around there, I believe it is. So let's just accelerate time up here for 5 minutes. So that's 2, 3. That's 5. Oops, come on, stop. Right, so that's 5 minutes. So the unit should actually be in there. Have they come in? Ah, they're actually further down here, aren't they? F7. Okay, so yeah, they popped in at 5 minutes. Actually, still need to move those a bit more forward. Right, okay, let's move them actually down to there. So that's with late activation. Tried visible before start. Don't know why that didn't work there. But that's fine. Kind of happy with that, I guess. I mean, what we could do is maybe start them kind of like in town, so that they're kind of hidden, so they don't just pop up in the middle of the field. Have them drive out to here, and then start firing. I guess let's actually try that. So we'll put them here. Go add road. So we'll drive to that on road and then drive to here, off road. Oops. And when I get to here, that's when we can add the point. Oops. She said 2,000. Sorry about this, guys. I'm just kind of playing about with the RT here. What we might actually do is just to keep these things firing, we'll add on a truck, so a supply truck, which would be a RL 375. So he'll tack on to the end of these guys. So these guys should be on road at the start. So then we'll drive out to waypoint 1 on road, and then go down to waypoint 2, which is in the clearing here. They then should line up and then start firing at waypoint 1, and they shouldn't activate till 5 minutes into the game, and then their firing point would be plus 3 minutes. Plus 3 minutes, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's about 10 minutes into the game that the artillery then moves down, but we can move out or start them maybe after kind of like 20 minutes or something. So halfway through the game you'll get up a pop-up notification that there's artillery been spotted to the north. They'll move out, take position and start firing. So what we'll do is that we'll just make sure that they're working. Okay, so we'll go F10, so they're not there now. Then if we accelerate time, so accelerating time up here, so that's 10, 15 times, 20 times, 40 times. In fact, no, 40 times is a bit too much. Let's try 20 times. So that's 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now they've popped in. So watch them here. So now they've popped in on road. Moving north, we'll just accelerate time up a little bit here. So then they should then break off-road, head down to the bottom of the road. And then should line up into a firing line. They'll mark their guns. And then 3 minutes after they've parked up, start firing. So that's coming up to 3 minutes now. Yep, there we go. And then start firing on their target. So that's artillery in a nutshell, and how to place artillery and get them working. And because they've got a supply truck there, they'll just keep firing. If they don't have a way to resupply, they'll fire the rounds that they've got on board, and then they'll just stop firing. They won't fire anymore. So if we actually accelerate time, see how long they fire before they go into reload. And you can actually see the splashes in the distance over there on the horizon. Right, okay, so that's coming up on... So that's like 20 minutes of firing there. So yeah, they're just going to keep firing. You can tell them to limit the amount of rounds that they fire in the fire order, but with them just firing constantly, you know. In fact, there you go. All right, so to run out of rounds, that was about 20 minutes of firing. Let's see if they actually reload and refire. Because there's a truck there, I believe they should. Although with mortars and other rounds, I'd actually have a problem with them kind of not continuing to fire after they've expended all of their load. But I mean, 20 minutes of firing's pretty damn decent. Yeah, I think that's their firing sequence actually complete. We'll just leave this just for another 10 minutes. See if they do turn and start firing again. Yeah, there you go. Yep, so now they've reloaded off that supply truck. They retake their aim. And then another 3 minutes. And then they start firing again. Well, I got one gun. There you go. There goes the rest of the guns. So now they've reloaded, reset, and refired. So that's because the supply truck's there. So that's all pretty cool. So that's artillery. Artillery's pretty good. In fact, what I might show, I might not leave them in the game because, like I said, they do decimate frames and server lag and things like this. Is MLRS. MLRS is a lot of fun. In fact, what I might do is place something around here just as a bit of an air threat, maybe. Let's have a look. What should I add into these guys? Air defense. We've got Strellas, they're pretty nasty. Tor, some proper heavy nasty SA-15. Tor. Let's have a look. Tunguska. Tunguskas are really kind of cool. They've got radar guided guns, and then they also have 8 surface-to-air infrared missiles. So they use their radar for gun guidance, much the same as the Shilka does. They've got a search radar, which the sidearm will find. But if you don't pay attention to them, the infrared missiles on these things absolutely mess you up. They're proper nasty pieces of kit. So we'll add one of those onto the back of them as well there, so give them a little bit of defense. What I might actually do is set this, now that I know that's working, I'll set, let's see, 20 times 16 equals, okay, so we'll set the time more than, there we go, that should be 20 minutes, I believe. 20 times 60, yeah, so that's 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes of in-game time, so once you're kind of dealing with all of this stuff, 20 minutes has passed, the artillery will put in, and what I could actually do is add in a messy edge to all. In fact, what we'll do is message to coalition. So message to coalition, and then what we'll put is so just a message up there, we'll leave it up for 30 seconds, so it just comes up, catch the flight artillery spot to the north, this is priority 1, find and kill the artillery. Not a proper kind of, message that you get to a flight, but it does the job, saying that, there's artillery on the map, go and find it and kill it. So that's that. What I might actually show is an MLRS battery firing, because they're just funky. So we'll go into artillery, this guy. So this is large artillery pipes. You can use the Grad as well. These things have a lot of missiles in them, but this is a kind of older model. These ones are quite cool. Got the Smirch as well, but again this is one of the old lock-on models, so it's really low res and it just looks pants. So I'll use this guy. We'll use 4 of them just because. Then we'll place. It's like the American MLRS system as well. When they fire, proper cool. And then what we'll do is just give these. I'm not going to leave these guys in because, like I said, they absolutely tank frames. But I'll put these onto fire at point. That's their maximum engagement range there, I do believe, isn't it? That's their minimum firing range here on that inner line. That's their maximum firing range there. So I'll put these guys firing down at the same point. We'll set the zone radius of 1,000, just to show the effect that these guys can have. And then we'll set these guys off firing. So we'll just actually delete our test aircraft. And then we'll show these guys firing. Okay, so these guys are now lining up for to fire on their firing point. You can see the big ass rockets inside the tubes here. And when these things fire, it's proper cool, especially at night. So that'll be the back end. That's the front. I love that. They've closed the blast shutters on the front of the cab as well. In fact, I think you can actually see the rockets and that flying through the sky when they fire as well. I'm not sure what their pre-firing time is on these. It might be a couple of minutes as well. Let's just speed this up just a little bit. So that's coming up in 2 minutes. Might be 3 minutes for solution plotting and stuff. There it goes. Cool. So you spaffed a lot quite quick there. And each individual rocket is actually kind of, you can go into F6 view and view each individual rocket going through the sky. That's why it's such a hit on servers and things like that, because it does render, draw and plot every single rocket through the sky. Then if we go into F11 view here, you can hear all of the rockets kind of flying past. And then it just starts spaffing the area. Like I said, it is something that has quite an effect on server performance and stuff like this, is when artillery fire, because you've got a hell of a lot of rockets flying through the sky, and each and every single one of them is rendered. Yeah, so they're now all empty. I believe these guys will reload as well if you set down a like reload trucks and stuff for them. But like I said, I'm not leaving these guys in. Although I could maybe just the 4 of them. Could do. In fact, let's show you something cool. So what I'll do is put these guys on a delayed start as well, late activation. And I've got these guys on a late activation. Right. So I'll actually plot this guy. I'll put put trucks down next to each one. Cool. So I'll show you a pretty cool trigger thing here. This is something that took me a little while to kind of get my head around, but you can actually put in random elements. Now I'll show you how the random trigger works. So what I'll actually do is delete this trigger here. I'll come back and do this trigger later on, but right, so we've got this unit here, which is on late activation, visible before start. We'll do the same with these guys here. What we'll do is do like a random trigger, so either one of these units will pop in. So we'll go new trigger, now we'll call this RT active, and we'll go new. We'll go let's have a look. So this would be part of coalition in zone, let's say, and blue coalition. In fact, we need to make a zone point for this, don't we? So we'll put a zone point here, and then we'll call this call this one blue. So here we go. Alright, so this is another way to activate units, is using trigger zones. So we'll go. Oops, so we'll go new. So we'll go part of coalition and zone. Where has that gone? Now we'll go new, and then we'll add a random element of 5. New flag is, trying to think now, flag is false. Flag 1, yep. And then new activate unit. Group active, there it is, and then we'll put this into RT1, and then new flag on flag 1. Okay, so what we're putting in here is that when a blue unit enters this trigger zone, there's a random chance that one of these units is active. So what we'll do is that we'll go, in fact, no, delete that, we'll clone this and then change that to group active RT1. Cool, right, okay, so with this trigger set like this, there's a random chance that when a blue unit, so we'll set a another VIG in, flying it. Alright, so we'll set a blue unit. When it enters this trigger zone here, one of these two RT units is going to randomly appear. So it could be this one, could be this one. So let's show how this works now. So at the moment, neither unit is active. So we've got artillery here and we've got artillery over here. So the trigger zone's here, but you can't see it in mission. But when this blue unit flies into that trigger zone, one of these two RT units will activate. And it's really quite cool kind of trigger sequence. There we go. So he's flew into the trigger zone, and now this RT actives univated. RT unit activated. What we'll do is fly this again, and then we'll just show it's not a fluke, and hopefully the other unit will activate because it's a 50% random chance. So. Okay, and then we'll just hope this time it might be this one, might be that one, you never know, it's random. So what we've done is we've set two units down there and then set a random chance that when a unit flies into this zone, one of these units will activate. So we should be entering the trigger zone now. Ah, he activated that one again. Bugger. I'm just going to try this until we get the northern one. It will work. Yeah, like I said, it's random, so it'll just randomly pick one of the two that are in there currently. And then, speed this up. Yep, there we go. So now it's randomly activated another one who then start their route and stuff like that as well. So that's random spawning. I do have a dynamic kind of mission I've been building in 2.0 which uses this trigger sequence, so that when you enter a trigger on, like, you're flying a patrol route, you hit a trigger and then something randomly happens. So I've got like a random sequence of units set, so that I mean, what we could do here as well is add like clone this and then go delete. So what we'll do here is that there's a kind of even chance that you'll get the Southern Artillery, the Northern Artillery, or nothing happening at all. And then what we can do is then put in like messages. So you can put like a message to Coalition Blue. So this one here would be RT1, so that's the Northern Artillery. So then we could put so this is just a test message, Northern RT active. Then we'll, on this one, we'll put new message to group, message to Coalition Blue saying Southern Artillery active. And then on the third one it's a no event, so when the unit enters this trigger zone, nothing happens. It just activates the flag, nothing spawns. So then there's an even chance that this unit will spawn, this unit will spawn, or nothing will happen at all. So that's kind of how to do a random trigger group. Okay, so Ignition on the chat said for random spawn group locations, he's saying that Moose, which is a script editor, is way more powerful. But to be absolutely honest, I don't like using Moose because it makes missions completely unstable. I know Moose is better than what was previous, but by using scripts, you'll find that your missions will just start randomly falling apart. And anybody that's flown I forget what the name of the server is. We're trying to fly it the other week. It's like an online kind of modern combat server where you kind of there's lots and lots and lots of scripts running, but you find that the game will crash every 30 minutes. So what I'm just showing on this is that it is possible to do it without scripting. So this is kind of you know, kind of like basic mission building without using scripts. So that this is just kind of using the stuff that's in game without getting into script editing and using LUAs and all this type of stuff. So, you know, it can be done without using scripts. It just takes kind of like a knowledge of these triggers and what they can do on there. But yeah, this is just kind of like a basic kind of mission type thing. And you can set everything here onto random triggers. So I could make everything here kind of late activation, and then like as you hit like a trigger or something, so you're taking off from Kutaisi, when you hit like your waypoint 1, it randomly spawns in a different sequence of units, or it could like randomly spawn in different group of units. So every time you fly a mission, you get a slightly different result or a slightly different things to blow up. You know, that it is quite powerful what you can do with the basic mission editor without using scripts. And by doing it this way, you're not also making the mission completely unstable, so there's a 50% chance that when you play the game, it's going to crash on you. As you can imagine, I'm not a big fan of scripts. I know that things like Blue Flag, you know, and I forget what the name of the other server is we're playing the other day. But yeah, they just crash constantly because the scripts in them are, you know, they just cause the servers to think about too much. And then there's so much kind of going on in the background that the game just goes, I don't like it, and then it crashes. So by doing this and just using the basic triggers in game, your mission works, it's much more stable, and you can still have the same effects without the use of triggers and scripts and stuff. So yeah, that's my view on triggers and scripts and stuff like that anyway. But you can move these waypoints about, so you know, you could have it off the route. So You know, we can say like you know, like place it kind of down here, so when they're flying past there, if someone accidentally trips over this trigger, then it'll start this sequence of events from happening. So that's kind of some of the basic triggers there. There's lots and lots of stuff you can do with triggers. So you can kind of have things like unit dead. So in fact, that's one thing I wanted to do. So what we'll do here is actually place some. So we'll put L39 group 1. Put some Russian L39s on the ground here. L39Cs. Oops, not AWACS cap. Wrong button, there we go. So we'll put these in on high. We'll load these up with a couple of air-to-air missiles. Take off from ramp. So that's waypoint 2 advanced. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to set up a triggered action of a flight taking off to do an intercept. So we'll set perform task orbit racetrack. Let's be 300 at 5,000. Cool. Right, and what we'll do is also put these on late activation. Let's flight. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is set up a sequence of kind of aircraft taking off and flying a route. And then when you shoot down those two, another pair will spawn. So I'll show you how this trigger works as well, because this is quite cool. So in fact, what I need to do is put down another trigger point. So we'll put in a trigger point here, and we'll call this L39 spawn in red. Blah, 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 blah. Cool. Right. Let's go. Okay, so what we've done here is that when a blue unit enters this trigger zone, it will spawn L39 Group 1, and then Group 1 will take off. And then what we want to do is then set another trigger, so that we'll go if Group is dead, which would be Group 1, new, and then we'll go Group activate Group 2. Okay, so now when Group 1 is dead, Group 2 will activate. But I need to do something else with this, because if Group 1's not spawned in, they're automatically classed as dead. I'm just trying to think how to even this out now, because if I do this as it is now, Group 1 won't spawn in because there's no one in the trigger, but group 2 will spawn in because group 1's not active, if that kind of makes sense. So I'll just show that now. So I'll just move this just slightly out of the trigger zone and then show you kind of what I mean by this. The triggers in the game are actually really quite cool. It's just kind of getting your head around how each individual trigger and things like that work. So, right, so we're going to F10 view. In fact, no, they're not there. Oh, that's handy. So when he enters the zone here, we should get a group of L39 spawn in there. Cool. Right, so that's group 1 spawned in there. And then they'll start up, and then they'll take off and then fly their cat patrol. So then that adds an air threat. Then when these two get killed, when these two get shot down and die, then a second group will take off. Yeah, so that's how that works. So when you enter this trigger zone, I guess, you know, they'll call for aerial reinforcement. Then group 1 will take off and then kind of fly their cat patrol route. And then what I've done down here is told them to orbit. So what they'll do is that they'll fly between these 2 points until they run out of fuel, and then they'll go back and land. Now this is also something you can do with tankers as well, like air-to-air refueling tankers. So if I just kind of do a quick demonstration with this, so we'll set a blah 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 refueling KC-135. In fact, I will do KC, yeah. I was going to say don't have to KC-130 in this because this is version 1, but I could change this out for a 135 for the Harrier. So we'll send to point 1 there, then we'll go point 2, and then point 3 is landing. Oops. Landing. And then if we go back to point 1, then we can go advanced. No, perform task. Orbit in a. You can tell them to orbit in a circle. We want racetrack, and then he'll orbit between these 2 points, and then we'll tell him to do speed 300 at 10,000. No, 10,000, and then we'll actually set his starting point at 300. Okay, so we'll just show a quick demonstration on this of how this works. So this is how to get a tanker working. Okay, so we speed up time now. It's a little bit jerky, just kind of speeding up time, but so he's now kind of starting his orbit route. So he'll fly to waypoint 2, and then he'll turn around and circle and fly back to waypoint 1 and then to waypoint 2. So he'll just kind of keep a continual orbit going. But he's a tanker, so he'll just kind of keep orbiting until he runs out of fuel, and then he'll go and then land. Just getting a little bit of slowdown here. Blah, 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 blah. There you go. So now he's making his turn. And then he'll fly back towards waypoint 1. Show it better from F10. I think I'll speed up a bit better in F10 view. So, so yeah, basically he'll just keep flying backs and forwards, backs and forwards, backs and forwards. And then as you can see, we've got the L39 caps kind of flying his route, and then he'll get to waypoint 1, and then he'll do the same. He'll just kind of fly backs and forwards. But then again, if he's picked up this KC-135, you might actually go and try and shoot it down. So just showing these patrol routes in. Now we've got the convoy route moving there as well. Yep, so as you can see, he's now turned back around waypoint 1, so he'll fly back to 2. So he'll just keep circling on the route there. You can set them to kind of do a fly past point. So you can actually get them to fly like a square if you want them to on like a patrol route, but it is just as simple, just kind of doing like A to B, so then they'll just keep flying backwards and forwards, A to B, A to B, A to B, till they get bingo fuel, and then they'll return and land. But yeah, that's basic patrol kind of orders. And we can see the convoys kind of spaffing around there. Yep, so he'll just continue to kind of patrol backs and forwards, waiting for people to hook up with him, and these two L-39s here will do the same as well. Cool. So that's patrol routes anyway. And you can do the same with AWACS. You know, if you want to put up an AWACS, it's the simplest thing to do. Just basically place them down, place waypoint 1 on waypoint 1, tell them to orbit. He'll then orbit to the last waypoint in the sequence before the landing, and then you'll just keep flying that route backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. You know, that's a really good way of getting a group of aircraft to patrol a route. Just trying to think if there's anything else there that we need to add. Is there anything else you guys on the stream would like to see added or functioning, or how to get working? I mean, we've covered artillery there, covered kind of plane routes, placing units on the map and checking their positions, random activations and activating on triggers. I'm just trying to think. What else is there? Oh yeah, there's weather. Now, I like weather. I generally always add weather into missions. So up here, you've got your mission briefing, which you can set, like, so if we wanted December 2018, well, I guess just all 17s will go with that. So let's go on birthday, 8th of December 2017, and then we'll set it to 9 o'clock in the morning. So this is a 9 o'clock start on December 8th, 2017. Which is next Friday. In here you can write a situation, so like an overall briefing. So border war PV, and then you can set red and blue tasks. So only the blue side of the select blue can see what's written down here. Red can only see what's written here. Weather, there is a selection of things you can do, so we can put in like winter clear sky, so it's -1 degree, so that's really cold, with a little bit of in fact that's so you can do clouds and wind, so that's -1 winter, which is absolutely freezing. We can actually move that up to maybe about +5. You can set wind directions from here, so if you want to take off from Kutaisi, land-offs and takeoffs are kind of on this string here, so you take off kind of in this direction, so you can actually kind of plot the wind to kind of that sort of direction. And there's a little bit of light ground turbulence there as well, which makes the aircraft kind of react and stutter at low altitude, which is really quite cool. Also, you have dynamic weather. This is something I've not played around with a great deal. On the P-51 Mustang flight I did last month, I was flying for 6.5 hours up and down the map in a P-51. I had the dynamic weather going, but on this you can set like quantities, so like 4 weather heads, and then it dynamically generates weather, and the weather becomes changeable over the map. But if you just want static weather, then you can load in the kind of defaults down here, so you can go winter, clouds and wind, load that in, change the wind direction to suit your takeoff profiles and high altitude winds. You can set the QNH pressures, altitude, base for clouds, and the thickness of the clouds. You can also set low level fog and up and down the turbulence and things there as well. So we'll go to +5 with a little bit of wind on. So that's kind of like the weather there, so you can adjust the weather, and adding in a little bit of you know, weather can really kind of make the difference on how the aircraft fly and how they kind of how they operate in game. And you can also add like low level fog, so you can add just like a light kind of spattering of kind of ground fog, just, you know, kind of like if you want like an early morning thing in the winter with a little bit of ground fog kind of obscuring the ground. with clouds and being like a cold winter's morning, then you can do that. So if you actually kind of save this, and then we'll go in and have a look at kind of how it looks now that the time of day and the weather's changed. Right, okay, so oops, crikey. So as you can see, this is now 9 o'clock in the morning on a cold winter's day. There's snow on the ground. He's really, really loud. So now the KC-135 is actually flying through cloud because of the cloud base. If we go into F11, and then we'll climb up out of this, you can see with the kind of thin spattering of low-level fog, kind of like it's just kind of rolling in slightly from the sea, so as it kind of comes in, it's kind of climbing out of the fog, so a lot of the target areas are out of the fog, but as you get kind of closer down to the ground, you can see that there is like a fog, like a thin haze on the ground there, which can add a lot of ambience to kind of the map and the situation. And with the AV-8B being like a night attack, you know, you could start off kind of like late at night or early in the morning and set like the scenario kind of that way, like it's a dawn attack or dawn patrol, something like that. And adding turbulence and things like that, you know, it adds just a little bit more feeling, a little bit more input into the aircraft when you're flying. But this is, you know, quite a nice kind of time of day with the low level fog and things like that. Yeah. With the dynamic weather, you can use that so that it will kind of change, you know, kind of as the mission progresses. And you can change the pressures and things like this. I think low pressure is brings in rain, and high pressure brings in heat and turbulence and things like that. I'm not overly sure with the dynamic weather. I just generally put down a few zones and let it take care of itself. Yeah, and if you do something seriously wrong, we end up with insane winds. Generally, if you put down too many zones, you end up with a hurricane. Because there's too many like high pressure and low pressure zones competing, and if there's a massive dip between the high and low pressures, or a massive difference between the high and low pressures, it creates a stupid kind of wind zone where you know the winds kind of go up to like 80-90 knots or something, and it just kind of becomes a bit insane. So just by using 2 or 3 kind of pressure zones can kind of really make the difference. But yeah, this is, you know, kind of just like a basic mission, showing some things in the mission editor. You know, you've got ships in here as well, so you can kind of place ships down. I don't actually think you can see the ships in this one. In 2.0 you can see a lot of units. If you want to know what a mission looks like, you've got the encyclopedia here as well, which is quite funky. So you can load in the encyclopedia. So if you want to know what a specific ground unit looks like, so if you come down here and like, let's have a look. So, what's a MTLB? Oh, I'm not sure. Alright, okay, so that's what it is. It's a low-level APC. So if you see a unit in the unit list and you want to know like what a specific ship looks like, or a submarine, you can kind of bring it in this, and then you've got you can have a look about it, see what it looks like. From the encyclopedia, you know, and you can have a look and say, well, this is a lock-on unit, it looks shit. But if I go to where's the other one? UH-60A. Right, so this is the updated model for DCS. So they're both UH-60, but you've got the SH-60, the Navy version, which is like a low-res model, and then you've got the UH-60A, which is the high-res Army model, and then the SH-60. No, where am I looking here? UH-60. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, it's got several paint schemes on it, doesn't it? But yeah, you know, you can look about the units and see what looks like what from there. Same with structures. If you want to view what certain structures look like that you put on the ground, you can pull them up here and have a look at them. So this is a cargo lifting thing for helicopters. TV towers. So yeah, the encyclopedia is quite cool for looking at specific units. In fact, one thing I will do or show how to put down is a FARP, because they're pretty funky. Let's have a look about here. So this is the snow map. Blah 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 blah. So this is flat area here. So what we'll do is put down a FARP here, and I'll show how to get a FARP working. So if we put down a blue FARP, there's grass airfields in this, but currently grass airfields aren't working. I guess we'll get those with 2.5. Heliports. Here we go. So this is a FARP, so we'll put this down here. Now one thing with the FARP, they generally always kind of I always turn them 90 degrees from north, and then they'll face north, and it's weird how it works, but yeah, so what we'll do is call this FARP 1. Now with a basic FARP on the ground like this, you can tell it to get supplies from an airfield, so you can add suppliers like Senaki. Now this will pull all of the supplies from Senaki, so you can link it up to that, and what supplies Senaki has will supply this FARP. But you can actually get a FARP unit to work on its own, and you do this by adding certain structures. So if we come down here and then go into structures, there's certain structures. So you got FARP ammo store. So I'll put this here. And then you got the FARP command post. Then you got the FARP fuel dump. And then you got the FARP tent. So what we should have there, we'll put these here. So we've got ammo storage, command post, fuel dump, and then tent. And if we actually kind of we'll place a helicopter down on this, so we'll put a say UH1 take off from ramp. We'll actually make this one playable just so I can show that. Client. Okay, so what we've done is that we'll put down a client UH1 kind of on the FARP with some FARP units about it. I think they should be close enough. Right, okay, so let's hit go on this. Okay, so here we go. I've actually just put them just slightly off the FARP. Okay, I need to move those slightly further down again. Just give me 2 seconds here. What I might actually do is adjust the time of day here as well, back to midday. So I'll just show this working on the FARP, but this is kind of like a very simple way of making a FARP work. Right, okay, so here we go. I just missed them slightly. They're kind of on there, but I can readjust those and just edge them forward so that they're fully on the FARP. But if we contact the ground crew and then go rearm refuel and then put on miniguns and some rockets. Then we should get a copy. Cool, there we go. So because those units are kind of on the FARP, that is working. And then we should get rearmed and refueled. But with those units on a FARP, it can be self-sufficient. You don't need to link it into an airfield, and then you'll get your helicopter all armed up. Yep, so getting rockets there. They have recently updated the Huey as well. It's an interesting helicopter to fly now. They've tweaked the engine, damage model, so you can actually overtorque the gearbox. Not overtorque the gearbox yet, I don't think that's been implemented yet, but you can overheat the engine and blow it up. But yeah, with those kind of 4 structure units on a FARP, without those it won't work, it'll just be dead. But with those 4 kind of units on the FARP, then you can rearm and refuel and things like that, so that's kind of how a FARP works. Okay, so Wraith is on the chat. How you doing, Wraith? He's just actually kind of explained how the dynamic weather system here works. So I'll just read this out off the chat. This is from Wraith444. He says, well, to do a quick summary, cyclone equals air circulates around a low pressure zone. Air is drawn to higher altitudes where it cools, resulting in clouds and poor weather. Anticyclone air circulates around a high pressure zone. Air is drawn from high altitude down to the ground, reducing humidity and resulting in generally clear weather. Also assuming DCS wind barbs work the way they do in real life on the map, the little spiny things indicate wind speed direction. The point goes in the direction the wind is blowing, and the number of barbs indicates the wing speed. 1 barb equals 10 knots. 1 half barb equals 50 knots, and 3 barbs equal 30 knots. 1.5 bars equals 50 knots. Right, okay. Let's actually have a look at that. So if we got dynamic weather, and then we do a... So if we want what? So cyclone would be air is drawn to high altitudes where it results in cooling and poor weather. Right, okay, so if we do a cyclonic... right, okay, so that would be 35 knots of wind there, I guess, around that side. So that would actually be kind of windy down this side, and then not so windy down this side. I guess one of these triangle things equals high wind, maybe. So, all right, okay, so there we go. So with one cyclonic system here, it's quite low winds. I get. All right, okay. Thanks, Wraith. That actually makes a lot of sense. So, so you've got kind of high winds out to the edge, and then very low winds in the middle. So if we put in 2, right, okay. So you can see the wind direction kind of going around there, and it starts getting a lot. Okay, so there's a high pressure there and a low pressure, so that's higher winds. So the more pressures you add, oh crikey, that's getting very, very windy. So that's 40 knots of wind on the ground there with 6 pressures. So 3 pressures actually looks pretty good there. So we've got a low pressure, can't see a high pressure around there. I guess they're kind of off the map. But that would be, I guess that would be kind of low wind blowing the way that we want it, and that would be a cold system. So let's actually have a look and see what this looks like in game. Yeah, thanks, Crash. Just clicked back in there and thought you were doing a musical notation. Nice. Going on about bars. La 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 la. Okay, so it's kind of actually clear weather now. God, that's loud, isn't it? Interesting. So that's kind of low winds, kind of clear, not many clouds and things. Let's actually try... see anticyclonic, what that would look like. Blah blah blah. So sorry about this, just playing on with the dynamic weather. So we'll go anticyclone. Crikey, that looks like very, very heavy wind, doesn't it? So that's a high pressure kind of over the area. Low winds there again. Let's see what that looks like with an anticyclone pressure system. Yeah, thanks to Wraith for kind of pointing it out there. That kind of starts to make a bit more sense now. Okay. So I guess that's a nicer day. I guess so. We can't get QNHs from stuff without actually being on an airfield, can we? Let's crank this up a bit. Should make sure this is default weather open dynamic. In fact, you know what I'm not doing? I'm not generating, am I? Pressure deviation. Sorry, just playing about with the dynamic. IANA meteorologist. So I've changed the temperature in game there now as well. So it defaulted at 20, so I've changed that down. Okay, so we've actually got a little bit of cloud going on here. Just spots of clouds, nothing too heavy. Just trying to see if we can get this area to have some pretty gnarly weather. So that was low wind. So these clouds are not actually moving at all there. Just maybe very, very slow cloud movement. Let's see if we can crank up the weather and see what it looks like. So we'll go, let's have a look. Okay, so that actually looks, that's got some pretty heavy wind there. So what's that? That's 40 knots over the area, 4 degrees. Let's see what this looks like in game now. So I guess that would be a bit heavier. Right, okay, so yeah, a bit heavier cloud. Let's actually have a look. Just trying to think, there should be a windsock around the end of one of these airfields, and then they show you kind of wind direction and speed, don't they? Picked a one airfield that doesn't seem to have a windsock. Or is it? Ah, here it is. Okay. No, that's not a windsock, that's a little radar dish thing. Some of the airfields do have windsocks on them. And they're kind of handy for seeing wind direction and speed, because you can see the sock kind of blowing. I can't see any around Cobuletti though. That's a shame. Let's see if we can find another airfield. Daisy. Oops. Getting some pretty kind of bad performance around here. No windsocks here, I don't think. Oh, that's annoying. I'm sure I've seen them before when I've been taxiing in and around airfields, like little windsocks just off the end of the taxiways and stuff, but I can't seem to find one on these. Right, okay. I guess that's a bit of a non-starter. Clouds. Are they moving? Yeah, the clouds are moving a little bit. Okay, so 95 areas saying the pressure difference from global average should affect the weather. So I guess low pressure would be shite weather and high pressure would be good weather. Let's try that. So so the average is 2992. I guess I don't know what that pressure deviation would mean in that though. But yeah, anyways, is how long have we been doing this now actually? Can't need to have a timer on. I've been going a couple of hours. So what I might do is actually kind of start drawing this to a close here. I think we've covered most of everything in here in mission editing, placing units down and making them move, trigger zones, getting aircraft to patrol backs and forwards, mission briefings. Just trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed. Yeah, this is something you can do as well. If you want to hide units, you can double click them on here, and then it makes them all disappear from the map. So if you want to hide units kind of before you load into the mission, yeah, you can do that. So if you click here and then double click on it, it hides them. So when you actually get into the mission, oops. So you can click on these and hide all of these, and then when you come into the mission, you can't see them on the F10 view or anything like that. But it seems I'm still going to be editing this. I'll leave them all visible for now. So I'm going to flesh this out. I'm going to kind of keep going with it and kind of get it mission ready and change things about. But just kind of wanted to do this here just so you guys can see a little bit of the mission editor and how some of the basic kind of triggers and things like that work. I hope it's helped. I hope that you've maybe taken something from this. Yeah, I'm still kind of playing around with some of the other triggers and JTACs. In fact, that's one thing I've been trying to get working, but I have kind of been struggling with a little bit is JTACs. So if we place down a blue unit here, might actually get engaged and get killed, but down a unarmed Humvee. You can make units JTAC, so you can come down on here. He's got EPLRS on, so when you look at him through the A10, you'll have like a blue diamond around him on the MFD because he's got that thing on. Then you can set a task, like perform task, to be FAC. Now you've got FAC assigned group, and then you can tell them to kind of talk on to one of these groups. So I could tell them to talk on to this group here, and then he'll kind of guide you on lays targets, mark them and stuff like this, and you can get them to designate with IR pointers or Willy Pete, laser, or automatic. So he'll choose the best way to mark it. You can set his call sign number frequency, so like 251 AM, which is the same that you use for tankers. So yeah, you can you can kind of set JTACs that way, but there is also another way of setting JTACs, I think, which is set, is it option or task? FAC, Axeman. So with this you can set them to just being a FAC without a group. But when I've been doing this in the past, they don't actually designate anybody. When you call into them, they just kind of go, I don't know anybody. So maybe there's something else I need to play with that. But I'm still kind of working on FACs and getting those kind of up and running as well. Bullseyes. These little icons here are called bullseyes. You can move this about. So if you want to set the bullseye to being Sakumi, if you've got an AWACS up, they'll call direction from bullseye. So it's normally kind of clock and distance. So if you want to set your bullseye at kind of like the initial point here, if AWACS was to detect L39 coming around here, it declare kind of like a bullseye on the direction. So that would be bullseye 245, for kind of like 20. And then that would be kind of like the direction from bullseye. So you can set the active bullseye on the map for AWACS to give bearings and things from. Trying to think what else is there. I think that's most of everything for now. Obviously just placing units kind of on the ground. So if you want to place like an A10 flight on the ground, just like the most basic thing you can do is like ACE, so A10C, set it to either player if you're doing it individually. If you're doing it on multiplayer, set it to client, and then anybody in multiplayer can select that as a plane to fly. You've got the options here of takeoff from ramp, and then you can choose the parking slot where you want to take off from. So if you want to take off from a HAZ, you can have them there, or you can have them taken off from the main ramp. You can also add in waypoints for them, so you can set like IPs, initial points, and route pass. So yeah, you can kind of like program in routes this way, and then you can set altitudes and speeds and things, so like 10,000, and then through that you also get like the route timing. So the aircraft taking off flying a specific route for a specific speed would take, because the time's 12 o'clock, 22 minutes to fly that route. So you can kind of see how long that takes. But again, just for multiplayer and placing units, just kind of select them to client, put them down, take off from ramp. You can take them off from parking hot, so you can start there with his engines and systems on, or you can take off from runway. So basically when you're spawning on the aircraft, it'll be hot on the runway ready to go. But if you want a cold start an aircraft, then just do takeoff from ramp, and then it'll be cold and dark and ready to go. Arming up the aircraft, you can do that from the armament screen here. You can see kind of like representations. You can choose your screen. So I like the green A10. So you can set the green A10 down there. You can set ammo types, fuel types, things like this. And then you can choose like specific loadouts down here. If you want to create your own loadout, you just click new, and we'll call this mix. And then you just kind of right click on a box, and then you can go ahead and just kind of start choosing things that you want to put on, and then kind of like putting together a kind of like mission pack, from here of whatever you want to put on your aircraft. So yeah, that's basically kind of arming aircraft and putting them on ground. You've got special options for some aircraft as well. In fact, if we change this to the L39, just to show this. So with the L39C and the special options, you can take it to solo flight if you don't want people to be able to join. With aircraft control priority, you've got instructor, so with this the instructor can always take over the aircraft, so the backseat has priority to fly. On multiplayer, if you're going to be flying with public, I'd set it to always ask, or you can have equal responsibility. So either the front or back seat can take control at any point. They don't need to ask, but you can set always ask there. On these, to have prefixed radio frequencies. So if you want like channel 1 for your airfield, you can get the tower frequency just by clicking on the airfield. So clicking on the airfield, you get the tower frequencies up here. So like 134. Then you can go into the frequency thing here and then change that to 134, and then you've got the airfield programmed into channel 0 on the radio panel. So that's kind of a bit of that. You can get kind of like a general summary of the flight, the route length, speed, range that they're flying, things like this. So yeah, that's generally how to place kind of like an aircraft on the ground. You can also change the call signs up here. So if you want it to be like kind of like Pontiac 21, so like or 421. You can also change the names, pilot names, tail numbers, and all type of stuff from things like that there. So yeah, like I said, I hope this has been interesting. Hopefully learned something. Like I said, not the most thrilling thing. It's not kind of flying around and bombing stuff, but by doing kind of this sort of stuff, you can place some units on the ground, kind of set yourself like missions and triggers and stuff, just to make some other things happen. And then you can kind of use the entire map if you want. Now a quick just last thing about unit count. DCS likes about 200 units. After that, things start going a bit square shaped. Any more than 200 active units on the map in 1.5, and you'll find that everything will start slowing down to crawl. Moving units, If you're having moving units, count them as either 2 or 3 units, because they take a lot more kind of thinking about than a unit that's just static on the ground. So if you're having moving units, say 100 units rather than 200, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's generally the mission editor, and how to go about kind of doing simple things there. So I'll bring this to an end here. I'll just say thanks for everybody that's been watching. Thanks for everybody that's been taking part in the chat. Again, hope that you've learned something from this. And I'll say thank you very much, and good night, and hopefully see you guys next time. Bye for now.